Today we're gonna read the Magic Tree as Merlin Mission Book 13, Moonlight on the Magic Flute. And today we're gonna start reading at chapter 3, Her Imperial Majesty. And today we're gonna start reading at chapter 3 and the end of reading at chapter 4, okay? And now, are you ready for this one book with a lot of stories? And now, here we go. And first you can read is the Magic Tree as Merlin Mission 13, Moonlight on the Magic Flute. Chapter 3, Her Imperial Majesty. Thanks for help, Joseph, said Annie. Yeah, thanks a lot, said Jack. You're very welcome, said Joseph. I hope you will enjoy yourselves at the party. We will, said Annie. Bye. As the coachman had climbed back into his car range, Annie had turned into Jack. This is so cool, she said. Not really, replied Jack. He didn't know how to supposed to act with Her Imperial Majesty, whatever the rest of her name was. His hands felt clammy. What do we do when we meet her? What do we say? He asked. We just watch what other people do, said Annie, and we copy them. Come on. Jack and Annie have walked over to the sweeping stairway. They stared up to the steps, following the other party guests, and the women were girdling jewels and gowns with the giant hoop skirts. The men wore wings and white skirts, following down over to the collars of the long coats. All the clothes are made of silk and stained with a ball of rich colors and patterns. Oh, bother, said Jack. What? Said Annie. There's that kid who yelled at me, Jack said. The small boy from the blue coat was standing at the top of the stairs. He wore a lilac-colored coat with a gold braid. A tiny sword hung from his side. A sword? Said Jack. That's ridiculous. He can't be more than 4 or 5 years old. The boy had turned and caught sight of Jack and Annie. A big smile had crossed to the round face. He waved at them. He's so cute, said Annie. She waved back. Not really, said Jack. A man grabbed the boy's hands and pulled him into the palace. And here's why I look funny, said Jack. How's my wig now? Annie giggled. It crooked again, she said. And your ears are poking out. Hold on. Jack and Annie stepped to the stairs. And Annie had grabbed both sides of the Jack's wig and gave it a good yank. Move along, children. You're holding up the line. Move along, children. You're holding up the line, a woman behind them said. Annie had picked up her hoop skirt, and she and Jack hurried up the stairs. At the top, Jack had pulled out their invitation out of his pocket again. He led Annie into the palace and showed the invitation to the guard in a red uniform. Follow the line through the lantern room that go to the great Rosia room, the guard said. And Jack saw a line of the party guests was walking slowly toward the candlelight room. And then he and Annie quickly joined the line. The room was full with the sounds of the whispering and rustling of the silk. A young girl in the white dress and the red roses was standing near Jack and Annie. And then when the line moved, Jack waited for the girl to go ahead. The girl smiled. I'm not in the line, she said in the soft voice. I'm waiting for my brother. Jacob nodded, and he and Annie stepped forward. Jacob craned the neck with a better view inside the great Russia room. He couldn't see her Imperial Majesty yet, but he could see a part of the fancy room. Its red violet chairs and gold trimmed, and the gauzy white walls. And another guest entered to the great Russia room. And Jack and Annie took a step closer to the door. Now Jack could see her Imperial Majesty. She was a tall, plump woman, dressed in a blue silk gown with the ruffles. To Jack's surprise, a little kid with a sword was sitting on her lap, and a long row of older children stood behind her. Jack turned to Annie. Why do you think those kids are? He said. Annie struggled. They are children of their Imperial Majesty, the girl who had spoken to Jack's earlier. The Imperial children. Thanks, said Annie. The Imperial children look pretty unfriendly, Jack whispered to Annie, and the little boy standing on the sword was the only one smiling. Well, it must be really hard to just stand there wearing a stuff of the clothes and wings like people or being relieved. And Annie had whispered back, perhaps yourselves, you are next. The servant to the door to Jack and Annie. Oh no, sighed Jack. He had been too busy looking at the Imperial children to watch the guest in front of him. What do we do when we meet her Imperial Majesty? He asked Annie frantically. I don't know, I forgot to watch, she said. Annie turned to the girl in the white dress. Excuse me, can you tell us what to do when we meet her Imperial Majesty? She said, and the girl had leaned close to Annie and whispered, enter room and announce your names, and then walk into the middle of the room, and you must curtsy and must bow. Next, go directly up to her Imperial Majesty and do the same. Got it, said Annie. Oh, and remember, the girl said to Jack, do not rise from the second bow until her Imperial Majesty tell you to. Do not even look up. Rise only when she says rise and step backward out of the room. Backward, said Jack. Yes, you must never turn back on her Imperial Majesty, said the girl. It could be a concert bearing bad manners. Thanks, said Jack. He was grateful to the girl of giving them such important information. The servant to the door next to the nodded to Jack and Annie, and two of them have stepped into the great Rossier's room. Annie of Frog Creek, Annie said loudly. Jack also of Frog Creek, said Jack. Jack and Annie also slowly entered the room. Her Imperial Majesty of Imperial children watched them closely. The little boy with the sword waved them, and Annie curtsied at Jack and gave a low bow. Then Jack and Annie walked closer to her Imperial Majesty, and she had a double of the chin and a high forehead and a lot of tiny bone curls. And Jacob smiled at her, but her pale face stayed very serious. And Annie cursed it again, and Jack gave a second bow. As he bowed, he remembered that it was bad manners of rise to look up before her Imperial Majesty told him to. And Jacob stared at shiny buckles on his shoes and waiting for here to Imperial Majesty say rise. Maybe I'm not bowing low enough. Jack tried. He had bent over a few inches more. To his hurl, the silver flute slipped out of his coat pocket, and it chattered to the floor, and Jack half grabbed it and his head fell off. The impartial children have snickered. Crouching to the flute, Jack had reached to the hat of his other hand. But then when he had grabbed his hat, the wing fell off, and Jack reached for his wing, but powder got in his nose, and he sneezed. As he sneezed, he slipped to the polished floor and fell to his knees, and gripping his wig head and his flute, Jack was scrambled back to the bowing portion. But he still hadn't heard her impartial majesty tell them to rise. The impartial children laughed loudly. Jack even heard her impartial majesty laughing. She probably can't speak because she is laughing so hard. Like Jack, he didn't know what to do. His face was burning hot. You've got to get out of here, he told himself. And still bowing, Jack began to backing up with the little steps until the bump of the wall. As the impartial children howled with the laughter, Jack turned the head, saw Annie peeking out from the doorway, giggling, and he had backed over to her. Annie grabbed the coat's tails and pulled him down of the gray Rosa's room. The impartial children had clapped and cheered, and Jack had heard the girls say between the gloops of the laughter, Who was that fool? That was Jack of frog grade, answered the small boy in a high voice. And they all laughed loudly again. Oh wow, it might be very embarrassed when this flute go down. Flute have fall down and a lot of more things. So embarrassed. So now Jack are very, very embarrassed and hot. But seriously, the impartial majesty are laughing too. So it's very, very funny for another impartial children, but not for Jack. And even Annie are laughing next to Jack too. But Annie acted very great, but not Jack. The powder fell on his nose and fallen down because it's sneezing and sneezing. Oh, it's very great story. And maybe tomorrow, we're gonna start reading at chapter 4 and the end of reading at chapter 5 or 6, or maybe a new beginning, new stories, okay? Now, bye-bye, everyone. And please thumbs up my YouTube. Really, bye-bye, everyone. Have a nice day.